Yeah, they probably need out a little bit before that, right? Does anyone have a class after this class that they got to get to? You do, kinda, okay. So like 9:50. Right, this is Chris Thompson, this is Colton Parker. They are graduates, and they're gonna tell you more.
Nice to meet you, Mr. Thompson.
You guys graduated, really?
Yeah. So let's get this started.
Yeah, we won't be here till 9:50, guys, to get out of it.
Yeah. Troy said you guys can leave as soon as we're done with this presentation,
Yeah.
so. All right, good morning, how's everyone doing? Doing good, thanks for coming in today and seeing our presentation, we appreciate it. My name is Chris Fitzpatrick, I'm here with Calvin Parker. We're gonna be talking about our paths from GE101 here at MHCC to working for the city of Portland as engineering technicians. So again, quick introductions, my name is Chris. Do we have any veterans in class today? No veterans, all right. Cal and myself are both veterans, so I was in the Marines from 2011 to 2015. When I got out, I quickly enrolled here at Mountain Community College. I didn't really know what I wanted to do at first, so I just took my placement tests, started taking prerequisites. I eventually decided on something in the field of engineering. And when I took GE101 and I met Troy and John, I kind of decided on the 2-year path. It worked pretty well for me at the time, and Troy was pretty cool, so that worked great. I put a lot into the program. I feel like I got a lot out of it. It took me 3 years to complete it, but it worked out well for me. After graduation, about a week after graduation, I was applying at many different places. And one of the first places I got hired was at a place called Cornell Pump Company. And what I was working on was actually one of my favorite subjects here at MHCC. Do you guys still do SolidWorks? Okay, yeah. So I took SolidWorks and advanced SolidWorks. I loved it. It was very fun. But when I got a job doing it, I didn't like it so much. So I was actually modeling components for large agricultural water pumps. And we were modeling 2D sketches into 3D models, dimensioning them, and then those would get sent off to China and they'd be manufactured and sent back. Fortunately for me, I only worked there for about a week. Since I sent out so many applications, I actually got an offer from the city of Portland about a week after starting there. And I've worked there ever since, and that was since about 2018 now.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Calvin Parker. Like you mentioned, I was in the Army. I was in for about 8 years. I was in aviation operations. So when you're in aviation operations in the Army, you work with computers and radios a lot. You have to make deadlines. You have to communicate very well with people. So that got me some pretty good experience to lead me into my time here at MHCC, which was a lot of teamwork, a lot of computer work, and a lot of dealing with technology that I wasn't familiar with. It took me also 3 years to get my 2-year degree here, because I changed my mind like a couple different times. First, I wanted to be an elementary school teacher. Then I changed my mind and thought I wanted to do what I did in the Army, which is aviation type stuff. And then I realized that engineering was more my path because I like numbers and I like working in teams. And I graduated in 2018. I think the same time as Chris.
Yeah.
And my first job as an engineering tech after I got out was one that Troy put in a good word for me. That was Evans Metal Fabricators in Portland. I was a CAD drafter for them, which I'll touch more on that in a minute, as well as my current job, which is an engineering technician for the city of Portland. I've got various duties and responsibilities there.
All right, so a quick overview of what we're going to be talking about. We're going to go over the daily life of each of our roles as an engineering technician at the city, some cool projects we've worked on, and then what the differences are between an engineering technician and an engineer at the city, and then some tips for college success. Starting off with me, when I started with the city, I was hired in the Bureau of Transportation, and that's where I still currently work. I've worked there for almost 5 years now. I started as an engineering technician 1 in a group called Development Review. And what that group is responsible for transportation is you review and issue building permits to residential and commercial developers. So say someone wants to remodel a home, or they want to build a development, or they want to build a new commercial building. They'll have to put together plans, engineer a set of plans, present it to the city, and then the different bureaus such as transportation, water, environmental services, they'll review those plans and make sure everything is either up to code, or if it's not, they'll correct it and get it into code. And then they'll approve the plans once everything meets policy. So I did a lot of that. I reviewed a lot of those permit requests for the first year when I worked there. I also worked on sidewalk permits. So not a lot of people know this, but as a homeowner, you're responsible for the sidewalk in front of your property. So say out front, your sidewalk is cracked or the tree roots are lifting it. You're responsible for fixing that. Someone trips and falls, it's on you. So as a homeowner, you can request something called a minor improvement permit or a sidewalk permit, and the city will charge you for the linear feet of that sidewalk and issue you a permit. Then you can have a contractor come in and fix it and have it inspected. I did a lot of those while I was there for that year. I also worked on encroachment permits. So say a development is happening and they have an existing retaining wall or a fence that extends past the property line and it's in the right of way. That's technically an encroachment on the city's right of way or our property. So we would need to have that permitted as an encroachment if it can't be moved. So what they'll do is they'll request it, we'll review it. If it needs to be there, we'll allow it. If not, they'll have to remove it. And then we have it recorded with the city, we have it recorded with the county, and then we map it. And that leads me to GIS. So GIS is the geographic information system that the city uses. We use it on a daily basis for reviewing permit requests and plans and anything in the right of way. It's basically a fancy version of Google Maps. It just has every lot imaginable within the city and everything that's in the roadway. And so, yeah, I worked there for my first year in development review. At the end of my first year, so about 2019, I got hired as a Tech 2 with a group called Utility Permitting. What they were working on at the time was ramping up for vertical infrastructure, which I'll touch on in a second. But the main purview for utility permitting is working with franchise utilities such as PGE, Northwest Natural, Comcast. Anytime they need to put their utilities in the ground, they'll need to submit plans to us. We'll review it and we'll permit it so they can cut open the street, place it, remove it, or move it, however they need to do it, and then they'll restore the ground to standard. So that's the main thing I work on in utility permitting, but then more so what I was focused on for the time that I've been there was the small cell infrastructure. So I worked with wireless carriers such as AT&T and Verizon to install their wireless antennas throughout the city on utility poles and streetlights. The population is growing in the city of Portland and there's not enough bandwidth to support it. So they needed to put all their infrastructure throughout the city to try and increase that bandwidth for 4G and 5G coverage. So I reviewed a lot of those plans. I wrote a lot of those permits. Something I also work on is design exceptions. So if a developer, say, is putting conduit in the ground and for whatever circumstances, they can't install it like the city wants, which is parallel and perpendicular to the right of way, we'll allow it, but so long as they can justify why it needs to be at an angle or something like that, whether it's extremely expensive to move it and make it right, or there's other stuff in the way. There's a process for that, and we'll go through that design exception process, and then we'll map it similar to the encroachments. That's about it for me.
All right, so I'll give you my perspective of what it's like to be an engineering technician. First, I'll talk about my job at Evans Metal Fab. There I was a CAD drafter, which I'm sure you guys know about AutoCAD by now. People use it all over the country and all over the world still. And it's a good skill to have, so pay attention to that class. So for my job as a CAD drafter over at Evans Metal Fab, we would take highly technical drawings from Intel, our main customer. They would be ordering pedestals that they would test their equipment on. And I would take highly technical documents with way more information than was necessary. And I would kind of revise and redraw them, sort of translate them so that our welders could easily read them and understand and build from them without having a whole bunch of weird words that they've never seen before, or way too much information. And so, yeah, my AutoCAD skills really helped me in that job as well. Not only was I to redraw and revise drawings, but I would also have to go out onto the floor and inspect these products to make sure they were built to the standard that I indicated on my drawings. So that involves attention to detail and a ruler as well. So yeah, that's what it was like for me at Evans Metal Fab. Now I'll talk about what it's like for me at my current job, City of Portland, and the engineering technician over there. Upon getting hired, I was sort of voluntold that I was going to be the floor warden for our group. Our group is like 30-something individuals. And so if you don't know what a floor warden is, that's the person that's in charge when there's an emergency taking place. Like whether it be fire, earthquake, active shooter, flood, any type of emergency at all. It's our job to not only ensure that the procedures are followed according to plan, but we also have to make sure everyone is trained up and remembers what to do in case of an emergency. I'm also the safety manager for our group. And that's a pretty heavy responsibility that I take very seriously. There's a couple of different aspects of that. One is I'm in charge of picking and assigning safety training for everyone in our group every month. Not only assigning it, but make sure it gets done and reporting to the supervisors as well. Another thing I do as a safety manager is I hold and I run the safety committee meetings every month. So it's just myself and the supervisors, which maybe there's like 3 or 4 of them each month. And we just talk about anything and everything related to safety. Want to make sure our guys are doing what they need to do to get the job done without any injuries. And yeah, it's a pretty good part of my job. It takes up a lot of my time. Another thing I do is I help with material procurement and inventory. So that's ordering materials, parts, tools, etc. Safety equipment as well. I contact the vendors, place the order, make sure it gets here on time. I will pull out my trusty Microsoft Excel and log it. If you guys aren't familiar with Excel, get familiar with it, because you're going to be using it a lot in the engineering world. I'm also helping with responding to and processing dig requests throughout the city. I was blown away at how many dig requests the city of Portland gets on a daily basis. It's anywhere between 100 and 400 requests. And for almost a year, I was the only one processing these. It's almost overwhelming sometimes, but we would use the GIS mapping programs that Chris mentioned. And I would just take the requests and pull them up on this GIS map and see if we have any assets in the area. If we do, I'll go and I'll pull the plans for that area. And I'll forward those plans to the locators. And those locators are the ones that go out and spray paint the ground. And you guys will see like numbers and letters and lines on the street sometimes. That's the locators indicating that there's stuff underground and not dig it up, essentially. Another thing I do for the city of Portland is I test circuit boards called conflict monitors. In case I didn't mention it out loud, it says up there I'm in the signals and street lighting division. So the conflict monitors that I'm talking about are in the signal cabinets that you might see attached to or sitting next to signal poles that hold up the traffic signals. There's a lot of circuitry and components inside those things, and they need to be tested on a regular basis. And I'm one of the techs that test those. That sums up my perspective from daily life in the ET.
All right. So cool project that I've worked on at the city is definitely the vertical infrastructure side of things. I think to kind of summarize what you do as a tech for the city, at least in my experience, it's probably different from Calden's because I'm in a group or a subsection called Development, Permitting, and Transit. So most of the time what I'm doing is reviewing what an applicant wants to do in the city and then making sure it meets city policy. And then I just issue them a permit to do that work. I never see that work ever again. It's done in the field and an inspector looks at it and makes sure it's up to code. And if so, it's closed forever. So a lot of times you're just reviewing work on a screen and you never see it again. Maybe you'll drive by that development one day randomly. But with the vertical side, I liked it a lot because I permitted hundreds of those sites on existing wooden utility poles. So a lot of times when I'm driving through Portland, I'll just randomly see a utility pole and say, oh, I worked on that. And it's kind of a good feeling. It kind of reinforces the importance of the work you're doing. So a lot of time you're just looking at code and plans. And if it matches, you just let it go. But to actually see it in person is a good feeling. So that's a cool project for me.
So a fun project that I've worked on for the city of Portland is graffiti removal. You guys have noticed, but there's a lot of that. Way more than we can handle. We don't have nearly enough manpower to handle all the graffiti. We don't even have enough manpower to handle the stuff that we're trying to handle, which is the offensive and hate speech type stuff. And we still don't even have nearly enough manpower for that. But we do what we can to prioritize it. Like we'll pick the biggest, most offensive stuff that we can find that's in the highest traffic areas, and that'll be like priority one. And, you know, stuff in lesser traveled areas would be priority two, less offensive, priority three, stuff like that. But this type of project required good communication amongst different groups that I don't normally work with, that I don't even see and never even met. So I would have to just work with them on the phone or on the email. And which requires a level of customer service skills and professionalism. We would have to plan routes for these guys. We couldn't just give them a list of places and say, go here, then here, and then here, and then here. Like say if there's five graffiti removals for one particular day, we don't want to send them on a route that'll have them go like a star pattern for these 5 places. We want to have them like go on a pentagon pattern, you know. Saves time, saves gas, and saves the city money. And my favorite part of this project was when there was a lot going on in the office. We could check out a city vehicle and just drive around, grab a coworker that's also not too busy, and just drive around the city and look for graffiti. And at the same time, you know, getting to know your coworker, chit chatting, seeing the city. That was like one of my first projects, and fell in love with working for the city with that one.
I don't get that privilege. I don't get to go out and drive around, which does sound very nice. All right, so now we're going to talk about the differences between an engineering technician and an engineer. The first and probably the biggest is education requirements. So as an engineering technician, you really only need an associate's degree. A lot of techs will have bachelor's degrees, but they're in random fields such as maybe community development or something along that or in that nature. Whereas to be an engineer, you need that bachelor's degree in engineering. And then also you would need your engineering training certification and eventually probably your PE certification, depending on how high you want to went or how high you want to go. I don't have a lot of information on those certifications. Maybe Troy does, but what I can say is that I know when you're getting to the end of your 4-year degree, a lot of the professors will start hounding you to get your EIT certification so that you're ready as an entry-level engineer with that status. And then the next difference is going to be level of responsibility. So as an engineering tech, you really carry a lot less responsibility. For example, in my line of work, I'm reviewing probably a smaller focus, or what I'm working on is a smaller scope than what an engineer would be working on. So say PGE wants to place a utility pole. That's easy. I make sure it meets policy and they can put the pole in. Or say Comcast wants to put in 50 feet of conduit. That's just 50 feet. It's not too bad. Whereas an engineer is probably going to be more of a project manager reviewing an entire city block development for whatever discipline they're in, whether it be transportation, water, environmental services, and they're going to make sure that entire frontage meets policy all throughout the stages of development until it gets sent to construction. And then there's also less upwards mobility. So at the city, there's only engineering tech 1, tech 2, and tech 3. Tech 1s and tech 3s are kind of few and far between. Tech 3s are technically leads. So a lot of people will sit in those roles for long periods of time. So the main focus of the city is a lot of tech 2s. And if you'd like to go any higher than that, you'd have to pursue the path of supervisor, which a lot of times is more of a management role. So it's not really something that would fit a 2-year engineering degree to go into, but with enough experience, you can, and I've seen it happen. And then for engineers, like I said, you have a lot more responsibility. Your scope of work is more broad. And then with that comes just more leadership opportunities. So looking down at the pay or the different levels for engineers, you start out as an engineering associate with that EIT certification. And then eventually, maybe you'll have your PE, you can become a senior engineering associate. And then after that, you can become an engineer 1, which is kind of like a group supervisor or manager. And you can go up to engineer 2, 3, or engineering supervisor. I think there's a couple other disciplines that I'm not familiar with, but there's more upwards mobility. And then talking on the pay, so we have the figures listed here. The city of Portland does pay pretty well. And so these are at the max steps. Sorry, I'm standing in front of the slides. These are at the max steps for each level. So as a tech 1 at 6 years, you'd be making about $70,000. As a tech 2, you'd be making just under 90,000, and then as a 3, just over 100,000. And then I believe when I was in GE101, Troy had said that because someone had asked what's the difference in pay between engineering tech and engineer, and I believe he said 20 to 30%, and it does hold true for today's standards as well. So as an EA, just an entry-level engineer, say you start as an entry-level engineer with the city, just an EIT, which probably wouldn't happen for 6 years, period of time, but at 6 years, you'd be making about $100,000. And then when you go up to senior engineering associate, which usually happens, I'd say for engineers, probably within 2 years, same with kind of the tech 1 and tech 2, you're making about 120,000 at 6 years, and then an engineer 1 is about 132,000.
All right, so for the last portion of our presentation, I'm going to talk to you guys about success and how college will relate to success in your life. And these are some tips that I have before I get into them. I'm going to mention a few things that you're going to get from your time in college should you take it seriously. That's going to carry over into your personal life, whether it be at home or at work. You're going to get teamwork skills. You're going to work with a lot of different people. Some of them are not easy to deal with. Some of them are. I had a lot of groups where some of my teammates were not very hard chargers. They didn't work hard. They were late. They didn't pull their own weight. And that's what it's going to be like in life too. You just got to learn to roll with the punches and deal with it. You're going to get a lot of practice with making deadlines. And that's important in your life, especially in your job. You might get fired if you don't make deadlines. So take it seriously. You're going to get practice with using all your resources, whether it be your calculator, your computer, your phone, even your tutoring center, all your resources available. You're going to get to know your resources pretty well. And one of the biggest takeaways that from my time in college was I got to know myself a lot better than I thought I did. You're going to learn your strengths. You're going to learn more weaknesses than you thought you had. You'll be able to improve upon those. It'll be a good experience for you. So I'll just get into some of these tips here. First one, be prepared. And before I get into these, I'm going to let you know, I learned all of these the hard way. So I screwed up on almost every one of these. And so I'm going to do my best to portray why you should pay attention to these tips. So be prepared, meaning buy your supplies early. Don't be like the majority of people and wait until the last minute for a number of reasons. Your supplies might not be there. You won't have enough time to get organized with them before your term starts. Next bullet point would be master your tools. First one I can think of is the calculator. I don't know what you guys are on right now, but I think I had like a TI-84 or something like that. I did not master that thing. I just used it whenever I was supposed to and did my best with it. I'll tell you, the last thing you want to do is show up to a midterm or a final exam knowing that you know everything you need to know, all the subject matter that you're going to be tested on, and you get to the calculator portion and realize, crap, I totally forgot how to enter a formula into my calculator. It'll just take the wind out of your sails, your confidence will just plummet, and who knows how you'll end up doing on that. So master your tools. Study the syllabus. Every teacher, every term should go over the syllabus for you on day one. Don't let anything creep up on you and surprise you. Be prepared for it. Next tip is use the tutors in the tutoring center. I can't stress this one enough either. It's extremely helpful. Sometimes your instructors are going to be busy. Your class might be going over a concept that's difficult for most people in the class to understand. And so their office hours are going to be packed full with people asking questions and needing help. They might not have enough time for you to answer all the questions that you have. That's what the tutoring center is there for. See, I spent countless hours in the tutoring center. Even when I knew that I wasn't going to have a problem with my homework, I would go in there and do the homework in the tutoring center, just in case something came up that I had a question or if there was a problem I needed help with. There's different teaching styles from different people. Sometimes you might not just click very well with your instructor. So the tutors are a chance for you to learn from somebody else. And on the subject of learning from other people and using tutors and mastering your tools, as I mentioned before, use the internet. YouTube can help you learn stuff that your teacher might be struggling to communicate to you about. They might be speaking more of your language on a YouTube video. I know for calculus class, I struggled real bad with that, and there was a teacher or somebody on YouTube called Nancy Pye, and she helped a lot. I just watched a lot of her videos and it helped a bunch. So master your tools and use all the tutors available. And this one is probably the most important one. Ask questions. Ask all the questions. Even when nobody else around in the class is asking any questions at all, especially when nobody's asking any questions. You might be surprised at what responses you get. You might get an answer to a question you didn't even know you had yet. And not only that, just you putting yourself out there and asking the question might encourage somebody else to ask questions as well. And the more questions you ask, the more it gets the gears turning in other people. And they might have questions of their own based off the question that you ask. The answers are only going to help you learn and become a better student. So be bold, be brave, ask questions. There are no stupid questions. The only stupid question is the one that wasn't asked. Be proactive. This is one that I struggled with for a couple of years. First and foremost, you need to be able to understand your assignment as you can give it. Make sure you ask all the questions about the assignment before you leave, so that when you get home, you're able to just get started on this right away. Even if it's not due for a week, and you're looking at it and you know it's only going to take you a half an hour, you can do it anytime. That's what I kept telling myself so many times. I can just do this later. That's a bad idea. Don't do it. Unexpected problems are going to arise at some point, even if you don't expect them to. Obviously, that's what makes them unexpected. But if you wait until the last minute, good luck getting a hold of your teacher or your classmates to get help with these problems. And the sooner you start, the sooner you finish, and that's less stress on you. And stress is a tough beast to handle in college. Next tip would be stay organized. This one I struggle with a little bit as well. Find a way to track your assignments and your due dates. So get a calendar, use the one on your phone. If you got a laptop, use the one on there, or get a physical calendar. That would be another tool that you should master. Look at that calendar often and use it right. Put all your deadlines and your milestones that you want to make on your calendar and look at it often. And don't just put schoolwork on that. You got important personal life stuff you want to do, whether it be a job interview, a funeral, or anything. Put that on the calendar with your schoolwork, so you don't pack too much schoolwork on the one particular day when you have other responsibilities as well. It's important to stay organized. Next tip is build relationships, and that's with your table mates, with your teammates, with your classmates, with your instructors. And I'm not saying find buddies to like go party with. Don't like try to find dates on the weekend or whatever. Get to know these people as students, as fellow students and teammates. Because you're going to be working with them for a while, and who knows, you might be working with them.
Yeah, future coworkers too.
So yeah, it could be future coworkers. Even if you, like I said before, they're hard to work with and you don't like them, you might end up working with them for a long time. The more you get to know your teacher, the easier it's going to be for you to pick up on the lessons that they're trying to teach you guys in class. So just strike up a conversation here and there. This guy is easy to talk to.
Yeah.
He's pretty fun. So yeah, it'll help with when it comes time to work together in class if you know each other. And the last tip I have for you guys, and this one is just as important as any others, balance your life. Yeah, balance your life. Don't live your life with your nose to the grindstone. That's no way to live. That just stacks up too much stress on your life. You do need to make school a top priority. This is a very brief time in your life. Even if you're going for the 4-year degree, you're going to look back and say, man, that went by so fast. You might think that you're just doing this or just getting this degree to satisfy your parents, whatever the case may be. this is a learning experience for you. If you take it seriously, which you should, it can be very stressful. And that puts me on my last bullet point for this is handle your stress in a positive way. Make sure you do handle your stress. Because if you do take this seriously, and you should, you're gonna stress out. The things are gonna be hard, you're gonna be challenged. So just find a way to handle your stress, whether it's painting, building computers, learning martial arts, hiking in the woods, whatever feeds your soul. And that concludes my portion of this college success portion.
I have a couple ones to add.
Okay.
Okay, so I have a couple to add, just looking back on my time here in GE101. The first one I would say, and I know it's probably a very tough decision for some of you at this point in time, is try and make that determination, whether you'd like to pursue the 4-year or the 2-year path. Because if you go down the path of 2-year, maybe some things when you get to the end that hold you back from switching to that 4-year path after about 3 years. So it's best to decide early on which works best for you, in your personal life and educational goals and, objectives. And yeah, that's about it. That's all I wanted to add for that. It's just focus on that. Yeah.
Thank you, Troy, for letting us come and talk. And any questions, anybody? What's up, man?
So whatever you guys mentioned here about, does this apply to mechanical engineering?
Engineering in general.
Right. So I think that question let me go back. So
We're
the
working
difference
more
is-
in transportation engineering group.
Right. So that's a good question because I don't know if it's still called that. Cal said that the name of the 2-year degree changed. Is that true? Engineering technology.
Yeah, we went away from mechanical civil
Right.
architecture
Yeah.
because employers said, we really don't need them flavored. I mean, it's great that you guys do that, but
Yeah.
we really just want 2-year graduates out of an engineering program and
Yeah.
then we'll teach them what we want to teach them.
Yep.
Right.
There you
go. So
Yeah.
that's,
Yeah.
but a transportation engineer is a subset
Yes.
of mechanical.
Yes.
So you'll find most positions in engineering are gonna be a subset of mechanical, civil, electrical, like the big 3.
Yeah.
So transportation is definitely part of mechanical.
And they also call them that 2-year degree in mechatronics.
So we have a different one called mechatronics, and that's definitely more focused on hands-on troubleshooting of equipment.
Oh,
And that's it, like that is the focus, so. The crazy equipment that we'll see, for example, on Thursday at the diamond manufacturer, that's gotta be worked on by somebody when it doesn't work correctly.
yeah.
That's gonna be like a mechatronics type of technician.
And also to add on to that, so as the 2-year degree, one way to look at it is more of like a junior engineer. So you wouldn't even get that fine-tuned, subsection until you actually go and you become a civil engineer or a transportation engineer or, something along those lines. So for example, a civil engineer at the city would be the one who's probably working in transportation or maybe BES. And you're reviewing all of the roadway, half a street improvement and the sidewalk for an entire city block. Whereas the transportation engineer might be reviewing the flow of traffic through the city of Portland and how that works with streetlights and so on and so forth, and how to affect congestion and traffic control for the construction that's going on. Sorry, next question. Yeah.
The GIS instances, what exactly does that look like in practice? We talking like Google Maps and city plan, like layered on each other?
So we can actually probably pull up a.
Yeah, it's just it's a big map that the city uses
Is that
to.
open to the public? Like, is that the map I use when I look at my permits in the city of Portland?
I'm not sure.
I think so. Okay, so let's see if we can actually find something that looks correct.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely some kind of a GIS system. When you go into it, to a property, you can see all the permits that have been pulled on that,
Oh, yeah.
and also my permit that I've pulled on that.
Yeah, I think it is available.
So,
I think what it is the city will create a public facing domain for you to use, and all that information is taken from GIS. They link them up, so they're talking to each other.
To see parts that they want contractors to see.
Yeah, so I'm trying to find an actual image that looks like what we would review.
Something like that.
Sort of, it's not detailed enough. Yeah,
The GIS is an actual system name.
Yes. that's
Yeah,
correct.
so GIS started, like, I taught GIS like almost a year at the thing, and it was literally a third-party package that tagged them on the AutoCAD. So it really just like a super cool Excel spreadsheet within AutoCAD to keep track of data. So I think it's evolved since then. It looks like a map, right?
Yep, that's correct. And see, so this is another item that I use on a daily basis. It's called Portland Maps. And what it is, and it actually gives you a pop-up here saying, welcome to the city of Portland GIS Hub. So this is that public facing version.
That's paradise.
Yeah, this is probably what he uses because you can search up any property if we just zoom in here. So we have all of our lot numbers, we have all the lots, and if I click on a lot, I'm gonna see all the information, you know, the square footage, the year it was built. If I want more, I can go to the assessor detail, see the last sale price. And then more information on the home, such as we usually go off the R number. Where is that? I don't see it here. Looks like it's a W on this one, but yeah, essentially this is what GIS would look like. And so you're going to be able to see all of the infrastructure in the street as well. And it's different for every group. So I use a utility permitting version of GIS. He may use a signals and street lighting version of GIS where he can see all the street lighting circuits throughout the sidewalk, where I can see, you know, the water, the Northwest Natural, everything that's, you know, utility related. So it just depends on what version you're
So
using.
just for your guys' knowledge,
Mhm.
the engineering technology program,
Mhm.
you can flavor it still.
Really?
So
Okay.
If you're interested in civil, you can take the surveying class, 1
Mm-hmm.
and 2, we still have 2 surveying classes, and we have a GIS class through the natural resources.
That one's probably a very good one to take. I'd probably recommend it.
Mechanicals take
Mhm.
SolidWorks instead of AutoCAD, mechanicals take an advanced SolidWorks class and an advanced AutoCAD class.
So cool.
So you can flavor it a little still.
Yeah.
but That's it.
And then you had a question.
I was gonna ask, you mentioned switching between 2 years and 4 years degrees. How
Yes.
hard is that?
So, okay, it's difficult because you don't want to get too personal, you know, but what I will say is that, I don't know if it's still like this, but I remember, like I said, you know, when I was going to Mount Hood, I didn't really know what I wanted to do at first. So I took a lot of prereqs and then I started to hone in on engineering. And when I took GE101, that's when I started focusing more on the requirements for the engineering program here. And when I got close to the end, I was like, well, maybe, you know, I can have the time, or maybe I do have the time to stick it out for the 4-year degree. But I believe a lot of those math classes or some of the basics are non-calculus based.
Correct.
That's right. So if you,
You can answer that question
Yeah.
in Calc 1, Calc 2, Calc 3, Calc 4, Calc 5. Like a lot of calculus classes for transfer. So how hard is the switch? Well, it's going back to school and getting all those calculus classes that you didn't get in the 2-year program. And 3 physics-based calculus courses and the full chemistries. So it's challenging, folks. Like,
Yeah.
you know, you've signed up for transfer, you've signed up for
Yeah.
the like holy grail of educational rule. Like, it's awesome when you get through it, but it's rough. to
Yeah.
get through it. So
Yeah.
It's time to switch.
Yeah, I mentioned
If
that
you're gonna switch, go to work. Like, if you got the 2-year degree, go to work. And
Yeah.
Let that company here for those courses. and
There you go.
pick at it
Yeah.
every time.
which the city will do.
Also build your resume because you're working. Right?
Yep, yep.
So these are 2 great reasons right here for the 2-year degree. I get that, but also I think they're itching for the 4-year degree. Well, they should start going to school at night and get it. Like, that's all it takes. Took me 7 years to get my master's because I took it 1 class at night every term. Flipping effort. But I agree with Cullis. That was like that in my life. Like, that was a long time ago. And that was okay. I could do that. But
it's gonna be a short time of your life, you might as well do it right and do the best.
there's so many paths, just
Yeah.
choose, you know, the other thing is, okay. It's great that you can choose early, that's fine, but just choose. And get a degree, it'll be life changing if it's 2 years. And it'll be life changing if it's 4 years. What you don't want to do is get 75% of a degree. Stop. That's definitely not my goal. That's the worst. And I talked to a lot of folks that was like, oh, I was in engineering. I was in engineering. I'll say it right out. I started in that, and then that was, they moved on, and they would have been great engineers. Right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Then another thing on that, and this touches on one of the tips that Calvin mentioned is, I think both of us, like I said, I was in the Marines. So when I started going to Mount Hood, I was very serious. I was a very serious person. And I was very focused on getting an A or a B at least. And I think that it's sometimes better to not focus on not answering anything wrong, but more so understanding the subject. If you get a C, but you're doing your best to understand it, what's actually being presented, that's more important. Because if you're going for that 4-year degree, like you said, it's grueling. So, have that balance and try and not stress yourself out too much to where you feel like you can't complete it, because you can. So.
It's hard work, but I live by the saying that hard work pays off in some way. You just gotta see it right, you have the right perspective. You might not use this degree once you get it, but you'll learn from this experience.
Any other questions?
Thanks a lot, you guys. Thank you, Troy, for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
You guys took time off work to come here.
Yep.
The little Mount Hood Community College.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Thank you for the
Very
opportunity.
much.
Yeah. And thanks for listening to our presentation.
All right, thanks, guys.
Okay. Yeah, sorry.
When you were in school.
Yeah.
It was the same class.
It was the same class. Yeah.
Oh,
We sat in those chairs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
5 years ago.
5 years ago.
5 years ago, they
Yeah.
sat in these chairs. Actually, you were in the auditorium. Were you in the auditorium?
We were. Yeah. We were not.
I heard that, sort of like, sort of like classes and whatnot sometimes.
So I think this, in the fall, so we've switched it a little bit, but in the fall, we used to do GE101 in 4 sections. So anyone interested in engineering would take GE101 together. And we would core the lecture, it would be 120 students in a theater style class. And we would teach it. And actually, it was super fun. Like, it sounds terrible. 120 students, it sounds terrible. So the vibe in a theater style room,
Mhm.
when you walk into it with like all 120 engineering students who think they want to do engineering, but they don't have the clue, kind of like you guys sometimes, right? It was super fun to do, but we moved away from that. Is that the experience you guys
Yeah.
have? Yeah.
We planned all night to be presenting to an auditorium
Yeah.
of students. Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking out
You're
there.
probably like, yeah.
Yeah. I was like, oh, we're at 60:59. Oh.
So yeah, that's how we used, and then the labs, like your Thursday lab, that was just, we put that out as a 4, so like 25 per lab, because we couldn't handle 120 lab. Like, you had to do the project with that many students. But some just crazy dynamics in class, and you have 120 students that, that question, yeah, it was super fun. But now we do a little different. We do fall and winter. Explode it a little bit.
One last thing before I go, I did want to share where you can find City of Portland's job postings. So if you just go to Google and City of Portland government jobs, the first link, you'll need to make a profile and sign in, which is nice because it'll save all your resumes and answers and whatnot. But then you can, yeah, and these update every Monday. So new listings or changes to existing listings go up every Monday. And you just type in engineering, you can see what currently is available with the City of Portland. So they need an electrical engineer, civil engineer that focuses on groundwater, structural. That's about it. So there's not a lot right now, but and then there's also chances for internships. I believe BES, Environmental Services, is known for doing a lot of internships. So that might be something to look out for as well.
Be prepared for a panel interview. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's being interviewed by a panel of different people you could be working for instead of just one person. So it's a little bit more added pressure there because who knows what kind of questions they're gonna ask
It's like one at a time, or like multiple people interview you at the
at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like it's in front of 4 people type of thing.
Yep. So yeah, dress nice and
It's hard, and the BPA's whole focus, I mean, I have coming, it's talk about engineering, but they're coming on a recruiting thing. They have so many positions that they need help with, so. There's a lot of hiring going on right now. So they've been great.
appreciate you guys being a good audience.
Thanks again, Troy.
Absolutely, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
That's it. You have extra time. Right.
Yeah. Cause I work in the back pocket.
That is like. So. So far.
Water around.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So. Well, not today.
Oh, I know.
But like.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, are you in Truist or?
So.
I'm finding that it's like.
Did you do the rest of this? Did you like work?
Immediately going to third party resources. And my grade went up. It's a bummer. There's nothing I can say about it. I'm sorry. But you probably get perfect in your jobs, you're not really.
And you kind of know how to learn, been to school for a long time, like, hey, the job is good, it's like, home life, home life.
She wasn't see that.
I explained, but I said, I'm like, yeah, I love the best stuff.
And absolutely no way. Yeah, 250.
I mean,
You're on,
and that.
Yes.
Well, we're at one point. Zero. That would be fine.
In this case.
025. So
Base, it's probably because.
one.
And I'm always.
I don't know.
That's all.
Certain amount.
Yes.
We're not bringing out for today for whatever reason.
This is, we have it, so you can see what's actually. That's part of why. Yeah.
1.025.
You remember them for.
More.
So.
Yeah, whatever that is a fraction.
Then that's it.
Was that like an 8? Because 1.125 is an 8.
Not an eight.
Because
Yeah.
1.2.
Good to you.
Yeah, 16.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. That's the outside diameter.
I'll get you an amphitheater next.
You have the
So I did.
the paper? Well, you have the paper. No, the design paper that we. Oh, okay. Yeah, so just write down like. Or draw the diameter, or draw the kind of a top-down view like this. And then only, so. The outside diameter is
The arm itself.
1.025.
The gap is.
1.025.
And what-
And the inside diameter
Yeah.
is 0.
No. It was true. It was part of.
Oh,
He just has he's teaching the class like a mathematician would teach other mathematicians. It's not how a mathematician teaches. So he starts out super technical and then tries to bring it in and doesn't really make it in. So you don't even like. 100%.
inside diameter is
Yeah, the language he's using is totally blown out, nothing that ever even comes up. So.
about
I'm just
0.
gonna tear through.
If
I'm
we
just-
use
what I
this
do
bad boy
today
real
is
fast.
I'm
Sure.
today, so I ripped through the entire week of calculus. One day.
That's right. Oh, you did, so I have. But after that.
I would at least like probably go to the Degree Center and charge some for that if possible. And then, give them. Because I think we chew on a little bit of week 5 and 7. Or do you need that classes right
No,
now?
it's even worse for someone. It works.
Good
Yeah.
times.
No, did I get the phone situation? It's so hard.
I'm on the final chart, but now it's gonna be like math, because it's math, physics.
You just play with her. You know, stop her like this. Yeah, Tuesdays are like, it's Tuesday, Thursday, those are. So since they've only got this.
Previous students.
Yeah, I'm like. And then. But I managed to bring her here sometimes.
Okay.
Because she had different snacks and.
Yeah, I can.
You know,
You just say.
brought her for snacks. I got everything ready to make the course, all I had to do was wake her up, put the dress up, put the throw her in the car. These were sure before. I was one of them.
Oh, to, for like.
Email him, I've done what he's asked for, he emails for something. And
Yeah.
now I just sent off another email.
Yes, I think I want to build something in there to lock up the gallon. I was more escape, and maybe that could be like.
Yeah. Yeah. Put me over three. Two to three, done at three, and they told them, students have to be back. I will figure this out. I really worked hard to like process all of the possible ways these things can be done. And I did not come up with it. That's awesome.
Yeah, as long as it works. Hey guys, all the read these. What's this here that would come up as.
That's.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
What's the what?
Yeah.
Penalty, wait.
Well,
Oh,
if it was a rocket ship, it would blow up.
I think the other thing for our design thing is gonna go on all this. Is that
Honestly, we can't use that.
It's not that that's next time. So, what I will give you before too long into the project is three.
I've got another one. That's. And that was, but it is fine, right, though, as far as.
Oh,
the way.
okay.
And so I guess if we don't get rid of the corner, you just have to be.
You gotta ask me, I guess. Like, the household items would be, everyone has that. Roll it with it. Random cardboard around the house, you know, a hammer, like, probably find a.
That's true.
In the rubber band.
Exactly.
You know, but if you're not sure, you ask me. Like,
Like,
is a nuclear chip a household item?
you know,
yes, it is.
A fuel cell? Have that. A drone?
It's like a
3D printer? Yeah, sure. Household item.
it's starting to be. My house.
Yeah, this.
I'm ready.
Yeah.
Say that again.
You know how the light bulb have no like.
Yeah, it doesn't have a little hookey, right?
I.
Nope. Negative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Once we,
Very cool.
once we set the phone. We have to click that button.
Nope. No, pull it off there, like whichever one you deliver first, I'll take it off. When it's the target or the one.
Themselves and both balls and both eyes.
Three different people
Discussing, right, lines through, like, no longer plastic symbols.
No.
Place.
One delivery is the weight and one delivery is the baseball. And it's, yeah, good questions. It's time to get it with the efficiency.
Maybe get some hints.
No hints.
As long as it's like. That's not this kind of feeling.
No, it's, don't have any of those either. Your project.
And about something.
You did, it's just distracted you.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not, I'm willing to say it's fair way because. Honestly, and with one.
Was mine for this class. Oh, for this class, email me, I've read it. Yeah, just email me. I think there's a lot of people. That yeah, I'm feeling. And there's a lot of moving parts in this class, that's kind of the. plans.
Yeah.
They're keeping track of the.
And this, oh, this one's
Like his comment on a planner, I've had actually the concept of requiring students to make a planner for this class. Because I think a planner is really important for education. Some people are like, my daughters are like way into their planners.
Yeah.
Like they're really cool planners, they're like artistic things.
I recently asked my friend's wife who is the same as, like, you just give me what you use, I'll try it.
Yeah.
Because she's one of those people that has.
It's like a thing for some students, like, like my daughters will go and like search for the right planner to buy.
Yeah.
And they're just super crazy about that. Yeah, exactly.
Honestly.
Yes. I can make sure that the polls.
What's fascinating to me is like the cell phone generation,
Right,
that's not where these students are choosing to do their homework. Like,
it's, I
It's-
really,
exactly. We are.
I have alerts on my phone, but I just went a big buzz on, it's like more agitated.
Well, and phone calendars are great, but you've got to look at it, and like you got to check it.
That's
Very cool. So we had like this family called the mom calendar. And I can't live without it, as far as the homework, that thing is checked every morning to see like what is going on.
Yeah, I'm trying to find something that's a good like one-stop shop because I've got work, this, and like 3 other things.
Yeah, it's like something to dial in. Like,
Yeah.
last term, this term I did. Cause especially when all the assignments are pilot, so I like to color code my homework.
Yeah.
And then I just look at it and I say,
Same with son, not an iPad. Like a Samsung tablet.
Yeah.
And he's got one. Like,
So
when he opens the thing, that's what industry basically,
Yeah.
like the client. It goes in, he does 3 days, so he shows in 3 days, and the way he puts it in there is
Present.
very good.
I feel like that's part of
I think the way they say and all those people. More than my phone.
No, well, yeah, ask yourself for me, if that's a Google Calendar, what.
Yeah, so the other thing that's super cool is he can just write and it turns it into.
Just for them.
Yeah, so he just writes and it says essentially. every something.
It's kind of like, let's get this through.
Like he does his
These are
house.
oh, are they?
That's all it is right now.
I'm like, this guy takes an hour, he's like, that's a lot, and he just like. Catch an app on his tablet. Well, and he'll draw the line, and he'll straighten that line.
No matter how.
Like, draw the line, but yeah, if it goes horizontally, it snaps it horizontal, so he like makes it drawing. One of those drawings, and it's just like.
Okay, you're gonna have to get that out. Let's see. I'm feeling that. I want to.
Like an hour ago.
Yeah. That's what. No, please find out that.
Yeah.
I'll leave an email like about it. That's good,
Good.
but if these are
Yeah,
inside.
it's yours.
And they'll.
Like,
I got on that. It's just still up there. I give you like.
well, I think though, like, I'm trying to sell things, I just like ruler as.
I mean, that's why I did it. That's my opinion. Very
It's almost like therapy though, to actually get the pencil and a ruler to decide like.
Sure. Yeah. I find the static stuff really satisfying, but I kind of got like fight or flight back when we were doing the object crafting again.
Oh, yeah.
I was doing that for that again.
Yeah.
It's just one of those sensations.
Good, that code worked. Excellent. Notice I didn't announce that in class, but it is right there on the back. So I don't think there's, like, I asked you about it the other day. It's any,
That's all good.
not just you, right? Because, yeah. They will make.
That's helpful. That's why everyone's studying your accounting. It's so helpful.
Holy crap, I didn't know those.
Explaining something to somebody, even if they don't know it, is one based on money.
For a year, starting at near 80.
Right now, nothing is.
Holy smokes. Compared to like 4 years, like something going on, a lot different.
That.
I mean, you didn't have to deal with the.
Wasn't, it still is.
Still, yeah. Holy smokes.
That's good.
Appreciate the last minutes for, Yeah, just text me, let me know it's you.
What map are you in right now?
I was in one last night.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the way this where it's before we're using the state. Yeah, it's a ways. That's why he was like, he was taking notes. In fact, I think so.
I was just at, so I went to Marx Brothers yesterday. Going through this, and they're just desperate, they want a 2-year person. They'd probably take more than one, and they make you have pressure vessel. But, yeah, that's the first thing he said, a heat exchanger. He did super large heat exchanger. These long, that line out, I think it's like that. And they have a couple. Yeah, well, and it's in there, mechanical engineers, they need. He said, we did that first before the lower side about that.
Yeah, because that's.
So, well, interesting place. Okay, let's better than it seems like. Everyone like this. Okay, well, this is a big metal. Facing the. Two engineering called the credits. So right here, this is going to be like. Running. Analysis on. Yeah. Yeah. Like. And. They had some capabilities with analysis. Yes, some. Not the best as actually. No, and what I find is, I mean, some of this is a really great software for the open environment. But when you get into like very specific pressure vessel heat transfer stuff, they have. Yeah, and I had the same.
Oh, so they actually like came up with their own.
No, they have, there's just, there's software
For individual.
Yeah, almost for every kind of engineering out there, there's.
Right.
That's why I'm like taking this whole device apart and putting it back together. The parents and always has all put it together. It's number one long and take my arm in here instead. The assembly game. Oh, yeah. And so I went for the. I don't think so. Right?
Yeah, it's hearing this talk.
There'll be a little extra recording at the end. Whoops, stop recording.